Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel Transcendence. My name is Christian Ramirez, and on today's episode we're going to go over two more personal experiences that I've had. One, we're actually seeing a full spirit apparition right before my eyes, and another from a sleep paralysis experience that I had. Let's get into it. So to get into my first experience, it all happened after my grandmother passed away. I lived on the Upper East Side in Manhattan, so Spanish Harlem. I've lived with my grandmother for quite some time. I used to live with my mom, but I was living with my grandmother out of choice, and eventually she passed away. She had a heart failure, and I've never had anything super strange happen in that apartment. And to explain something else that may be helpful to anyone listening is that something that I've learned, whenever you grieve, you emanate a lower vibrational frequency. And whenever you emanate love, you emanate a higher vibrational frequency. Now, by the time my grandmother had passed away, I already had this understanding within myself, and I viewed the world a lot differently than most people. So it was very strange when she passed, because even going into the hospital room, seeing her body there and seeing everyone in grief, I couldn't cry. I couldn't do it. Not because I didn't care, but I just had a different understanding, and I knew she was all right, but I had to leave because I knew that anyone watching me might be offended, or they wouldn't understand why I was acting that way. So I walked away from them to act as if I was grieving. Strangely enough, I walked away because I knew they wouldn't understand. And I had spoken to a gifted woman that we had known, who lived in the building. She just knew things. It was very interesting. You could tell her a name about someone, and she would tell you things about them without even knowing them on the spot. It was kind of creepy and cool at the same time. But anyway, I called her because I knew she would be the only one to really understand me. And when I told her what was happening, she said, of course, because you understand, you have that understanding, and that's why you're not sad. You understand that she's okay, and that, you know, more about the other realm. So anyway, skip forward to being in the apartment, and I was watering her plants. She had these plants in the apartment that she would always water, and they'd be by the windows and stuff. So I was watering them one day, and I went to the sink, and we had a very particular kitchen that actually went in kind of like a circle. So if you went through the kitchen, or you went through the entrance of the apartment and went through the kitchen, you could actually end up in the dining area to then the living room. It was just a big circle. So I turned towards my left because I had noticed something in the corner of my eye, and when I turned, I saw a full apparition of a woman, like more young. I didn't see an old lady or anything. A full apparition just glide on by. And I freaked out so much that I threw the cup of water that I was holding at the wall. I didn't know how to react. And I ended up running to the bedroom, terrified, because my brain couldn't rationalize it at the time. What I had just seen, it's like, yeah, we talk about this kind of thing, but to experience it and actually see something, it not only is it evidence for you, but it's also hard to wrap your mind around the first time around. And I had called my ex to tell her what happened. We were seeing each other at the time, so she wasn't my ex when I called her. And I was just like hyperventilating. She was trying to get me to calm down because I wasn't talking straight. You know, kind of like when a kid is like crying and they can't get the story out because they're so panicked and sad and everything, or they're just, whatever the circumstances are. So it's kind of like that. And she tried to get me to calm down. And I'm like, I just seen a freaking ghost. And I don't think she believed me at first, and I'll get it, because she ended up having her own experience in the same apartment. And I was like, you see, I told you. Yeah, it was ethereal. I could see through it. It glided. No noise was made or anything like that. It was just very, very silent, and it glided towards the direction of the bedroom, which is crazy because I ran in that direction, but I had to because my phone was in that direction. So I had to run to go get my phone to talk to somebody, because I did not want to be alone at that point. Even if I could be on the phone with somebody, I didn't want to be alone. So that's what I ended up doing, and that was my first experience. And I was a little wary about being alone in the apartment after that, but I spoke out loud and I was just like, Grandma, if you're out there and that's you, I don't mind, just don't scare the shit out of me. For my next experience, it was a sleep paralysis event that happened to me. I was going through a depression one time when I was dating someone. They cheated on me, and I was having a hard time dealing with it. I was emotional and stuff, so I was staying with a couple of friends. I was staying at their place, and I was sleeping on the couch also because I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to just be on my own with my feelings. I felt like I needed the company of good people. So sleeping on the couch, they went off to sleep, and then it happened. It felt like an invisible sheet or something of that nature kind of just slowly fell over me, and then I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, and I started to freak out. I could open my eyes and I could see around the room, but I couldn't scream, I couldn't talk, I couldn't move. I was limp. Felt like a slab of meat. And that's when I started to hear a noise. I could sense the presence of a being or something. I don't know how else to describe that. It's just a knowing. You sense the presence of something that's there. And it's happened on numerous occasions where I sense like another entity in the room. It's like that feeling when you're being watched, all of a sudden it comes up. And I could hear like rasps in the voice, like it was just kind of trying to reach out and just very dark sounding. It made a noise, something similar to this, along with some other noise that sounded kind of like a growl. And along with that accompanied the noise of chains, which was very strange. I never saw the entity, I never saw it. It was just out my field of vision above my head from where I was laying on the couch, which freaked me out even more for some reason. I couldn't even identify what it was that was causing me so much grief. And so much fear, it like feeds off of that. I don't know how else to explain it. But I don't know. And it's funny because it's occurring to me while I'm recording this, but maybe because I was in such grief, I was drawn to an entity that thrives or feeds off of grief. Because as you get into this stuff, you'll start to hear about negative dimensional beings and things like that. And those beings thrive off of fear energy or anything, hatred, anger, anything that derives from fear. And love, which is its polar opposite, actually pushes them away because they don't like that energy. They can't get energy from that energy. So that's funny. It just occurred to me now, but that's probably why. I was in a very dark place at the time. So it freaked me out. I couldn't move. I was trying to scream for help. And then eventually I was able to get enough of a scream of some sort out of my body. It's like your body's asleep or something. So I was able to get a scream out, and I was able to hear how loud I was when I did it. It sounded like a disembodied scream because it took a lot of effort to do. And I actually heard myself yell, and then being me, because I'm super nice and considerate, I was worried that I had woken up somebody, and I'm like, oh my God, I hope I didn't wake them up. Meanwhile, I'm having this fear for my life, and I'm worried about waking up my friend and his girlfriend when the whole point was to try and wake them up. It was a very weird experience. I guess I was just embarrassed, but that happened, and I had a very hard time going to sleep after that, and I kind of kept myself awake up to a point. And then eventually, when I saw daylight coming up, I felt safe enough to go back to sleep. But very strange experience. It's not my only one, and I will be sharing more in the future, but I hope you are enjoying these stories that I have to tell. I don't share them with many. It's my first time actually sharing these on a channel, with a wide audience, so I hope you guys get a kick out of it. And the reason that I brought up the lower vibrational frequency when in grief and the higher vibrational frequency, if you're able to maintain a higher vibrational frequency, it's easier to communicate with those who have departed because they resonate on that level. They are in a higher vibrational frequency where they reside. Mediums will tell you this. You'll hear about this in near-death experiences. People will talk about vibrational frequencies sometimes, and they'll explain that it's a much higher plane of existence. So you're vibrating at a higher vibrational frequency, and it makes it easier to communicate. Your loved ones are always trying to communicate with you, but a lot of times they can't reach you, and they don't reach you in the same way that you'd expect, because it's not like you trying to call your best friend up and say what's up. They have to reach out. They have to lower their vibrational frequency so that they can communicate with you, and they do that all the time through different signs, leaving pennies, showing you the same messages over and over again. There's also many different communication types, which I'm going to have a future episode about to go into detail for those who might be interested in that sort of thing. But they're trying to reach out to you all the time, and it's okay to grieve because you're human and we're meant to have emotional feelings. But for some, it's easier, and everyone grieves in their own way, so it's totally okay. But if you want to facilitate that communication and have it be a lot easier for you, it's easier from a state of peace and love instead of the grief and sorrow, which are the heavier emotions. There was actually a medium, John Holland, who talked about how he had a grieving mother come to him, and the son who she had lost was there, but she was grieving so much, and he had just passed, and he's like, this woman is not ready to have this discussion because her son is here, but she can't even talk to me like a normal person. She's just grieving and grieving, which is normal. So that's why he tells them to at least give yourself a couple months before you come and talk to me, because you're not going to be ready to hear what I have to say. And he's right here. He's totally fine, and he doesn't want you to grieve, but it's an energy thing. And that's all for today, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification icon so you can be notified when I come out with new episodes. And until then, I'll catch you guys on the other side.